Josh was standing outside of Respect's with his hands in his pockets and leaning his back against a palm tree growing out of the sidewalk. He was wearing his Heath Ledger t-shirt. Either he had 10 of them, or he wore a different one every night, or he washed it every morning. Either way, it was always clean. And talking to one of the socially inept that always had to stand outside and talk to the bouncer. At a wallflower bar, no less. The guy talking to him was a tall, fat web designer in a Decepticons t-shirt who gestured toward us and pushed his glasses up. I could never remember the guy's name, but wasn't bothered about it either. Josh looked in our direction and sized up my companions before smiling and tilting his head back at me. Somehow his arms looked bigger than they had the week before. I made introductions, yada yada yada, and we went in and got a booth. And I went to the bar feeling a little self-conscious in my suit, but played it off by pompously slapping the bar with my palm, shouting, "Bottle of your best champagne!" at the bartendress, who had more tattoos than I'd ever seen on one person. She laughed and held up a long neck, putting on a French accent and saying, "Le boudoir." I got us 4 Cuba Libres instead. One extra in case Josh wanted to sneak one while on duty, and Charlie immediately started annoying the shit out of us. You know, I'm a bit of a DJ myself. You think they'd let me spin for a bit? No, I don't. They have a guy up there they pay to do that. Yeah, I know, but why don't you ask him? Ask him if he'd let me. I can already tell you what the answer will be. Yeah, but, dude, I'm really good at it. I'm sure you are. Don't patronize me, man. I just want to spin for a few minutes. I'm really good. Why don't you ask him? Go ask him. Please? I felt something touch my leg and looked over at Elizabeth. She was slumping down low in her seat and eyeing me the way evil people do in movies. I tried not to smile at her in front of Charlie and squirmed a little in my seat so that she could reach me better with the foot she'd slipped out of her flip-flop. Sorry, Charlie, I really don't feel like leaving my seat right now. If you want to go ask, be my guest. But I don't know him. Hey, I don't know him either. If it means that much to you, go talk to him yourself. But drink up before your ice cubes melt. He looked down at his drink as if he'd forgotten he'd had it, and his eyebrows jumped. Elizabeth's foot was groping blindly, and I tried to steer it into place with my thigh while her jackass boyfriend drank until the glass was drained, swallowing loudly, smacking his lips, and giving a loud and obnoxious sigh of satisfaction. "So," Charlie said, "you never asked what I do for a living." I blinked at him for a second, wondering if I'd heard him right, then glanced over at Elizabeth, who was rolling her eyes again without actually rolling her eyes. So yeah, apparently he really had said that. I blinked at him a few more times, shook my head as if to clear it, a little move I picked up from my father that really pisses people off, cleared my throat, and asked him, "What?" "You never asked," he repeated, "what I do for a living." I nodded slowly, chewing on the little knob on the inside of my cheek, and furrowed my brow in concentration. You're right. I haven't. Elizabeth's toes were as close as they could get to where I wanted them to be without me readjusting myself in my seat, and I just couldn't do it with this idiot's eyes on me. Frustratingly close. "So?" he asked. "So what? Aren't you going to ask me?" "What do you do for a living?" "Guess." And I swear to God, I almost came flying across the table at him, but Elizabeth's cute little toes lunged forward those last 2 inches, and I tensed up all over. It was so blatantly obvious looking at her now, how she was slumped that low in the couch. Hell with it, I thought. I really didn't care anymore. Actually, I kind of wanted him to see it, but it was Josh who ended up noticing when he brought us all shots from the bar, his treat. He was smiling and just about to say something when he glanced down, and his eyebrows jumped at the small bare foot digging into my lap, and he started clearing his throat and shaking his head, trying not to laugh. Charlie was looking at the shots as if they were an interruption instead of a gift. "What are these?" I asked. Josh coughed and hit himself in the chest a few times with his fist, clearing his throat one more time, and gave me a questioning look. I gestured with a jerk of my chin at the shot glasses, and he said, "Try one." "Yeah, but what are they?" "Just try it." "What's in it?" "Try it." "Okay." I distributed them amongst my guests, crossed myself catholically, and downed mine. It was a bright red something or other. It tasted really familiar, and I just couldn't place it. I asked again what it was, and he said pineapple upside down cake. I frowned, then nodded, and shrugged. Yeah, okay. I could see why. So, Josh, I said, you'll never guess what old Charlie here does for a living. Josh sat down next to me and looked across the table at Charlie, squinting. Chimney sweep. No, Charlie said, slumping. Do I look like a chimney sweep? I don't even know what a chimney sweep is. I know, Josh said, snapping his fingers. I've got it. You wash people's windshields with a dirty rag on the street when they don't want you to. No, I don't. Elizabeth, tell him what I do. I don't even know what you do, she said. Yes, you do. Fine, he's lying. He is a chimney sweep. What the He looked around as if searching for the hidden camera. I asked Josh if the DJ might let Charlie here spin a little. You kidding? Of course. Let's go, champ. Josh got up and waved his hand for Charlie to come with him. Now the guy looked like he wasn't so sure. Oh, I don't know. I don't want to do it now. Oh, come on, don't be such a wuss. I'm not a wuss. I'm just not in the mood anymore. Elizabeth took her foot out of my lap and sat up. I tried not to show my irritation. Go, Charles. Show us what you can do. No, I don't want to. Charles! He wavered a little, then gave up. All right. Getting up, defeated now, he followed Josh half-heartedly across to the DJ's booth across the empty dance floor. Elizabeth watched him go and leaned across the table to hiss conspiratorially at me. He is not my boyfriend. I smiled indulgently at her, and she insisted. He isn't. My grandmother just thinks he is. Putting my hands up as if I didn't agree with her, I said, okay, if you say so. Good. So I'm trying to decide how to pursue my attraction to you. I'm leaving, going back to Antigua tomorrow, but I'll be back in May. I nodded, trying to pretend I wasn't wondering what the actual question was. What do you think? She asked. I think... Stalling. I glanced across the club at Charlie and Josh arguing with Patrick, the DJ, and watched them for a moment. Josh was making a big show out of it, and Patrick could tell it was a big joke and was playing along. Charlie was pathetically earnest. I think we need to get that boy passed out. Got any weed? She asked. I looked at her in surprise. She didn't seem the type. Not like there really is a type per se, but she seemed more like the type that didn't. I haven't had the chance to smoke anything in a whole week. I've been cooped up in my grandmother's house, and I'm going to just die if I don't get high tonight. I don't smoke anymore, but Josh can hook us up. Good. You'll talk to him, won't you? I have a pretty high tolerance, but Charlie will be out like a light in no time, especially if we get him drunk first. You mean he's not drunk already? I asked, incredulous. Oh no, she said with a sneer. He's always like that. You haven't slept with him, have you? I asked, suddenly seeing her social value plummet if she had. A look of resigned embarrassment said it all, but she mustered a little dignity. I don't know. I got drunk once and woke up in his bed. He said we did, but I had my panties on, so I don't think so. I tried to decide whether it made a difference, and then remembered that it didn't. There's a grace period when you've been drinking, even on a weekday, where your social value is unaffected by sleeping with a girl who slept with a dork. I think. If not, there should be. Josh came back over to us without Charlie, and I asked him where Elizabeth's boyfriend was. He's not my boyfriend, she said. Josh smirked. He went to the bathroom. Want another shot? Yes, please, I said, trying not to laugh, and he looked at Elizabeth. I'd love one, she said. Okay, I'll get your boyfriend one too. He's not my boyfriend, she screamed, banging her fist on the table. I watched that recessed lower tooth while her mouth was open, thinking, man, that's probably going to hurt me later. And it did, to an extent. But it was somehow tolerable. Dulled just enough by several hours of drinking and the little bit of smoke I actually inhaled when Josh came through for us. The rest of the times I took a hit off the joint Elizabeth had rolled, I was blowing on it to make the cherry light up and pretending to hold the smoke in so long that it stayed in my lungs. Good old Charlie, though, oblivious, smoked away and kept remarking that, damn, that was some good weed, which it wasn't. It was stuff that you get on short notice from a college kid on a Wednesday night, but it was doing the trick. He was already fading fast. What worried me, though, was that Elizabeth was smoking just as much as him. if not more, and it seemed she might pass out too, making the whole thing a waste of time and effort. Then, at one point, Charlie asked if I was gay. I blinked at him again, glanced over at Elizabeth, who also didn't know what to make of it, and asked what made him ask that. I don't know, I just thought, maybe, because I am. They both looked at me in surprise. What, is that a problem? I asked. No, Charlie said. No. Elizabeth had a sly little grin spreading slowly across her alabaster face. I try not to make a big deal out of it, though. I don't go around making sure everybody knows it. That's good, Charlie said, then corrected himself. No, it's not good, but it's better than... I don't know. No, it's okay, I told him. People really should not be going around telling everybody what they do in bed. You don't hear people saying they got a foot fetish or they only get off when they stuff their noses full of raisins as soon as they're introduced. Nobody ever tells me they're heterosexual when I ask them to tell me about themselves. Yeah, that's always bugged me too, Elizabeth chimed in. People are quick to tell me they're gay right off the bat. Do I volunteer my bisexuality? No. Seen it on the real world and those shows too. Day one, some guy moves into the room and introduces himself to the girl sleeping next to him and says, "By the way, I'm gay." I don't know if that's going to be a problem for you. Like if it was, she was 1, going to say it's on national TV, and 2, going to say it on the first day as soon as she meets her roommate, just volunteering herself to be the first one that's voted out of the house. And why would it matter unless he practiced his homosexuality with someone else in the bed right next to her? Or any kind of sexuality for that matter. Good point. That kind of thing should be done in private, no matter how you choose to do it. So now I have to ask, why are you asking, Charles? His posture had completely changed into that of a timid, submissive, and very vulnerable young man debating whether he should come out of the closet, as if this were the opportunity to admit it to himself and maybe explore this exciting new facet of his personality with a gorgeous young man. He looked at the floor. Oh, I don't know. Good. Now he wouldn't worry about me being left alone with his alleged girlfriend, and I had him on the defensive. He might even have to go off, sit alone somewhere, and think about a few things for a while, giving me time to at least make out with her again. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. We'd gone into the men's room earlier, and she'd come in after me. No preamble, just straight to the kiss, until good sense prevailed, and I told her we should go into the ladies, where Charlie wouldn't stumble upon us. She nodded, and I stuck my head out the door to make sure he couldn't see us, then ushered her into the other bathroom, pushed her into a toilet stall, and took her breath away. She even fanned herself when she pulled away from me, which is a reaction I've always enjoyed. It was nice to finally see a little color in those cheeks. So we finished smoking the joint out by Josh's truck, parked in the alley behind Respect's, and pushed our way back in through the fans of palm fronds and ferns that had obscured us from the road. My eyes lit up when I saw Curtis ambling down the sidewalk toward the bar, and for the first time in my life, I was happy to see him. Thing about Curtis, see, he was always telling me about the girl he just did this and that with last night or earlier that day, and making gay jokes with about everybody else in the room, every now and then even insinuating that I might be gay as well. Perfect. He just had to meet Charles. He just had to, like, oh my God. Curtis and those mango mojitos he insisted on drinking, and he'd drink so many of the goddamn things that he'd start to talk like that, over-enunciating and saying, oh my God, and then trying to bite back his words, trying to cover it up with, oh Jesus, look at them faggots over there. I only saw him when I was drinking at O'Shea's across the street from Respect's, trying to put off going to that wallflower bar as long as possible with the others that were reluctant to go but would end up going anyway, and then Curtis would show up and be Curtis at us until we all drifted out and sought refuge with the goths and punks. Curtis, I stage whispered. He looked at us in genuine surprise, like, oh my God, someone's talking to me. I gestured with a slight upward tilt of my head, and he came up to us, wearing his Castro hat that only looks good on chicks. Or Castro. What's up, Kurt? I asked, doing the handshake with him, the one with the thumb squeeze and finger snapping that took me forever to learn, but don't tell nobody. Look at you all dressed up. Where you been at? He said. Then he interrupted himself. Dude, I can barely walk, man. I am worn the fuck out by this bitch I just rolled off of. Crazy too, man. We did it like this. He started doing a little dance. We did it like that. Did you do it with a wiffle ball bat, Curtis? He stopped and smiled, clapping me on the shoulder. Yeah, dog, you caught me. I was just listening to that on the way over. Classy, man. Classy. Ain't you going to introduce me to your friend? Elizabeth said, a very subtle tone in her voice hinting that she was severely judging me for knowing this guy and even being on a first-name basis with us. It did not seem to matter her that Curtis did not know my name, though. I introduced them and noticed the way Charles and Curtis looked away when they met each other's eyes, both of them looking down and looking back up. Perfect.